We are on schedule. We have a auspicious dual holiday going on right now. I hope everybody can hear me, and I want to welcome you back to our webinar series. I want to welcome in our great student allies here, Aaron from Minnesota and Geronimo from Florida. Say hi to everybody.
Morning, guys. How's it going?
Morning, guys.
And I'm going to introduce again my guest co-host and panelist, Dr. Ryan Chow from New York City. Ryan, how are you this morning?
I'm great. I'm happy to spend Easter with you guys. So happy holidays. Thanks for tuning in.
Happy Passover. Good Pesach. Happy Easter. Aaron, do you have an announcement for everybody?
Yep. So our process is Craig will go through his presentation, and then at the end, he'll be taking Q&A. So anybody who's listening in right now, take a look at the top of your screen. There's a Q&A section. That is where we will be taking questions from. So I know there's a chat available too. We're not going to be taking questions from the chat, only from the Q&A. So anything that you want to ask Craig, throw it in the Q&A, and then myself and Geronimo will be pulling them from there and asking Craig. And then if he doesn't get to your question this time, he likes to take previous questions and put them into the next webinar. So be sure to ask away. Thanks.
Thank you, Aaron. So I have to tell everybody just how this all got started. Aaron and Geronimo on a Saturday night 3 weeks ago said, "Hey, Craig, you should do a webinar." So obviously, I just started to do some Zoom telehealth sessions. I've done some Skypes and WhatsApps and FaceTimes over the prior couple of years with international patients and clients, and patients who were out of LA on holiday or had moved, and obviously had closed down my practice, except for absolute emergencies, which are rare in musculoskeletal space, and began doing the telehealth sessions, something I'd been wanting to do. I've been studying e-medicine, e-health, m-health, watching the literature get more and more robust over time, reading people's work like Megan Marie. Hi, Megan, from San Francisco, Boston, New York, LA. I don't know what to say, but I know you're in Boston with your family now. And Megan had been writing for a good friend of mine, Daniel Lord, who'd hosted me in San Francisco, on how, ironically, you actually, because of the constraint of telehealth, can dig in deeper on people's concerns from a biopsychosocial standpoint, and you're not as rushed. People's expectations are different. They're not expecting the quick fix kind of manual therapy approach. And so you can dive into some of the upstream things about their mindset, about their perceptions, about what's driving their symptoms, about what's the most impactful thing long-term they can do to get us out of kind of some of the short-term, just give me some relief now approaches that obviously, work incredibly well, or we wouldn't all be here today. But sometimes things that work really well in the short term can actually waylay getting to the things that are more profound long-term. And so with that off the table, we actually, ironically, because of telehealth, in some ways can do a better job. So I've been thinking about it for a while, wanting to do it, but wanting to do it and doing it are two different things. And gosh darn, COVID-19 has had some unintended benefits, I think. We see, of course, our environment change, and we've talked about, and we've all witnessed, crime is down. There's fewer heart attacks right now. People are focused on how to strengthen their immune systems. We're aware of comorbidities more and more now, and so many other societal issues that relate to what are called social determinants of health. And I just saw something on CNN last night about social determinants of health, which I'll share a video of next week from a medical physician and professor in Washington, D.C., and she was talking about how, and we're all seeing in the United States how the African American experience with COVID-19 is far different than the rest of our population. And some people might assume it's genetics, but it's not. It's something that's socially determined. People in Washington, D.C. who live just 10 miles apart can have an average lifespan of 25 years difference. And these are socially determined factors having to do with the air we breathe, the water we breathe, the availability of green spaces and parks and things of that nature. So there's a lot of things that are upstream that are challenging for us. But in this time, I think we're having the opportunity to reflect. And in our narrow sphere of musculoskeletal care, I think this is something that's right in our face. And so I want to share some more videos today. I want to go through the why, what, and how of self-care, how this is high value musculoskeletal care, how this can prevent non-communicable diseases. This can boost our immune system, even with infectious disease. This can help prevent a lot of the musculoskeletal disability, the 5 to 15% of our population that have chronic pain. We've seen since 1990, the low back disability problem has just skyrocketed. There's a 54% increase in low back related disability. So in effect, as we're living longer, we're definitely not necessarily living better. And health span and lifespan are two totally different things. So we're going to dive in to the why, what, and how of telehealth, which really puts us right in the barrel, right in the sweet spot of self-care and the rehab approach that I learned from Professor Vladimir Yanda and Dr. Carol Levitt. So we're all kind of trapped right now. I still haven't decided where to go for Easter, debating between the bedroom or the living room. These are our choices today. And the same would go for Passover. So you all can reach out to me. Questions can be sent to me. I encourage them really to go to the Facebook page for First Principles of Movement, search for it, ask to be invited in. Dr. Chow or myself or some of our other people that administer it will accept your invitation within 24 hours. We got lots of great questions coming in on the Facebook page and dialogue from all over the world, and people a lot smarter than myself are chiming in, and it's really through that sort of crowdsourcing and whiteboarding that we can develop a mindset of being a learn-it-all rather than a know-it-all. So I was sent this yesterday from Donald Mull, who was an intern of mine briefly, LACC chiropractic student who's in the San Diego area, and a real ambassador for the Rehab to Performance paradigm shift. His wife drew this, and really sweet of you, Donald, to send this to me. Welcome to our webinar this morning. Thank your wife for letting you join us on Easter morning. This is from Megan Marie. We need to shift the perception of musculoskeletal care from one requiring clinician dependency to one of patient autonomy, one where I'm a trusting resource and guiding teammate to someone who is motivated and open to taking accountability for his or her own health. So we're helping people attribute to themselves. We're helping people to gain confidence, and confidence is the cornerstone of all performance. Confidence comes from one place. It comes from what we say to ourselves. And what people say to themselves has a lot to do with how we create an architecture that's gamified for self-efficacy, that's gamified for small gains, for little wins. So we want to put people in an environment that's safe, number one. This is the Abraham Maslow School of Thought for self-actualization, for fulfilling your highest human potential. We want to create an environment that challenges people at the edge of their capability. We want to encourage people to realize that not every hurt equals harm, so they're not feeling like a fragilista, that they're about to break. We want to reassure them the things they've been told about pathology on a scan doesn't apply to them as a person, that they may have this predisposition, but that there are things that can be impacted. There are interventions that they can engage in that can make a positive difference, that they're not just victims anymore. And their tissues aren't really, their tissues and their pain may be a symptom. They may be victims as far as where they're having symptoms, but we want to get to the culprit. We want to get upstream. We want to get to the source of the source. And there's so much we can change, because so much has to do with our relationship to our environment. And we can change the environment. We can get a kettlebell at home. We can use bands at home. We can go out for walks and bike rides, maintaining social distancing. We can learn things now that in the rat race of our day-to-day existence, we didn't have time to learn mindfulness, to meditate for 7-8 minutes a day, like Tim Ferriss recommends, to quiet our mind, to take a pause from that rat race. So there's so many unanticipated benefits right now. Here's a video, and I like showing these, and getting good feedback from everybody. This is one of the growing legion of people that are reaching out to physical therapists and chiropractors and trainers and coaches, asking them to guide them by the side and train them through telehealth or online coaching. This is Doug, and Doug's a pretty active guy. He's had some wrist issues recently that made it hard for him to golf. Hard worker, works in the film business, has a lot of employees under him, certain amount of stress. He has always worked out. You'll see he's pretty fit, but he's got his aches and pains. So I want to show you some of the stuff we did for areas that had kind of become stagnant. And we started off with this single leg deadlift, supported RDL.
Just do reps.
We're linking a pull pattern of the lower body and upper body.
Pop up, get tall. That's it. And reach back with the heel. Good. Use the balance the whole time. Yeah, nice, 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 nice.
So the foam roll is there so you can get more strength.
So now what we're going to do, Doug, is drop into the jiu-jitsu. I want to see if the right hip is a little freer than before.
As a rule of thumb, we try to get the afferent stimulated and get the sensory motor axis online and start to get some strength gains.
All right, how does that feel compared to when we started?
That feels good. Let's see. Yeah, one side, I'm trying to remember which side it was.
Well, we're only testing the right. The right is the one that all went into your back.
Oh yeah, that's like no longer a hindrance right now.
You're done. I'll send you the video and let me know when you want to repeat this. We should repeat it at least once or twice a week probably right now.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay, I'll schedule with your guys.
No, schedule with me. It's Ilmir is not, we just do it direct.
So we've cut out the middleman. People are just scheduling direct with me now. Doug had reached out to me, said his wife was having an issue and we're scheduling her, but I said, why don't you do a telehealth? And he said, sure, I hadn't even thought of that. I've gone in 3 weeks from just having like one person in a day to 2 or 3. Tomorrow, I'm going to be exhausted. I'm going to have a full day of sessions all day long. As people start to put their big toe in the water, they're all kind of surprised that it's as effective as face-to-face. They're getting extremely hard body weight workouts if they don't have a gym like Doug has. Doug's real blessed. And there's really no bar to really training people out of the comfort of their home. So we're going to go through the why, what, and how right now. First, just to tee up the problem. Yonda predicted this in the 60s. Professor Yonda said that we were seeing more and more sedentarism in the Western societies. And this was a result of our desk-bound work postures. And you can see that he was right. By 1995, the amount of sitting started to skyrocket. And as we sit more, we're biking less, we're walking less. The average American takes about 6,500 steps a day. The average Asian, about 7,000. Average European, about 6,750. Yet Amish people, which would be more reflective of our past, take about 18,000. So this is just sort of to epitomize how we're moving less. And the less we move, the rustier we get, the weaker we get. This is a very large study from Scandinavia, over 1 million people. And they found when they followed children, muscular weakness in adolescence is associated with disability 30 years later, a population-based cohort of 1.2 million men. Muscular weakness in children associated with disability 30 years later, very large study. So we know that people are sitting, we know that by the time a child is only 5 years old, only half of children in the world, according to Manuel Stamatakis, the #1 activity expert in the world out of Australia, tapped by the World Health Organization to help them design their physical activity guidelines. By the time a child is 5 years old, 50% of children around the world are not meeting physical activity guidelines. So we're at a place now where we actually even confuse the effects of inactivity with the aging process itself and believe that certain diseases are purely the result of getting older. Actually, our modern sedentary lifestyles have simply accelerated the underlying age-related decline. And this contributes to a host of NCDs, such as type 2 diabetes or cardiovascular diseases and even cancer. So actually, we're getting older younger. Many of us are simply not active enough. In England, fewer than half of 16 to 24-year-olds are meeting the recommended guidelines. And for 65 to 74-year-olds, it's less than 10%. So as a result of inactivity, and it's really one of the major drivers, it's not the only driver. As a result of inactivity, what we're finding is that we're accelerating things that people feel are a fait accompli and associated with age. But what that means is it's reversible. So that's the difference between one's biological and chronological age. We should, according to Harvard, be blowing out the number of candles associated with our lifestyle, with our biological age. We should not be blowing out the number of candles associated with our chronological age. And the incredible silver lining of this is that you can reverse these things. In 70-year-olds who have been sedentary for over 2 decades, in just 3 months of supervised resistance training, they can reverse atrophy and sarcopenia. So here's an image of sarcopenia showing that at the age of 75 years old, strength is lost at a rate of 3 to 4% per year in men and 2.5 to 3% per year in women. So this is pretty profound. We find that in one's 40s, atrophy becomes measurable, about 8% per decade. It accelerates to far more than that by the time you're 70. We actually start to have some weakness or atrophy when we're 30, but almost all of this is reversible. Even 90-year-olds through cortical plasticity can do strength training, can prevent frailty. 70-year-olds through strength training can lower the risk of falls. So these are things that we can impact, but not if we're managing people away from load. And the tendency and the danger of the fix-it mentality, the Batman approach, is that we give people symptomatic relief, like taking a cough drop, but it doesn't alter the course of these arthritides or musculoskeletal pain syndromes. Like the cough drop doesn't alter the trajectory of the cold. It just provides a symptomatic nudge. And sometimes those things actually become nocebos because they take us away from getting to the source of the problem. So because of COVID-19, we have that off the table. These things are not bad. We're not saying manual therapy is bad. Manual therapy is not bad, but we want to prioritize to empowering people about what they can do for themselves. So the health benefits of physical activity are well established. This is from very recent Canadian pregnancy guidelines. 85% of pregnant women do not meet physical activity guidelines of 150 minutes per week of physical activity. Pregnant women report low rates of exercise counseling by their obstetricians. So we've been managing every which condition, whether it's somebody with osteoarthritis or back pain or shoulder pain, or a person who doesn't even have a medical condition, a person who's merely pregnant. We've been managing them away from load. Pregnancy is not a fragile state. Let me say that again. Pregnancy is not a fragile state. So these are from the updated 2019 Canadian Physical Activity Pregnancy Guidelines released in October of 2018. So here you see what I was talking about as far as strength. As much as we lose atrophy, we even lose strength more. You can see from the lower curve that it eventually goes below the disability threshold. Whereas if you maintain your strength, if you continue to train, yes, you're not at your peak that you were when you were younger, but you don't go below the disability threshold. You keep that buffer zone. You keep that resilience that Professor McGill recently wrote about in a tremendous magazine article aimed at senior citizens in Canada. We want to maintain our general strength and general fitness in the basic movement literacies of things like squatting and single leg bias tasks like lunging, pushing, pulling, carrying. A general approach to strength is crucial to keep us younger longer. And I want to throw the mic to Ryan at this point, because he has a lot of people in New York City and Lower Manhattan that he's training that are over 50 years old. Of course, he also has lots of 30-year-olds and younger, but I've seen his work. I've seen the Reload team, his team of physical therapists and trainers, and the amazing work they do with people who are edging towards the 60-year mark. So Ryan, you want to chime in?
Yeah, I think the benefits of strength training are so often underlooked. When you mention that you might not be as strong as maybe you were when you were younger, I'm finding that people who have a low training age, people who don't have a lot of training experience, they end up reaching peaks higher than even what they were when they were younger, because they had never even trained and reached their potential when they were younger. So we're changing beliefs of a lot of people who come in who believe that they can't get stronger because they're aging, or they can't do this certain things or develop certain things. And we're on day one, we're showing I love making my older people lift something super heavy the first day, and staying with the Alfred mentality, I attributed it to them. I said, hey, you had that in you. I didn't change your strength in one day, but I just revealed to you what you had in you already. And taking that approach, I can show you where we can go in the future too. So I think strength training is so often underutilized, because a lot of people think about cardio. They don't think about resistance training. And once you get people feeling safe, they look forward to the achievement, the exhilaration, the positive experience it gives them. So I think strength training with the older population has been huge. I even make my mom come in and do it, because strength training is shown to help people who have had cancer reduce mortality risk by up to 40%. And she's never done it before, so I have her do it. It's funny because there'll be like pro athletes like JJ Watt was in there, and Victor Cruz, and they're doing all this stuff, and then my mom's sitting there, my 60-something-year-old mom, lifting her kettlebells. So it's pretty hilarious, but it's the research is clear, so that's what I do with my own family.
Thank you, Ryan. I want to welcome Beline again from Bolivia. We have people from Poland, from Argentina, from France, from England. So many of you keep turning up at these webinars. I know the time isn't good for people from Asia Pacific, but hopefully they'll take advantage of the recording. And we were really blessed to be able to do the webinar Thursday in the afternoon in the West Coast United States, which was a more favorable time for Australia. FPM will be in Sydney, God willing, in August. We have a lot of you. Lisa is here from Vancouver, Jazz from Vancouver, Gary, my former intern, Garrison Tang, who I want to give a big shout out to. Aaron is here from the Toronto area, Tyson Beach's kinesiology master's student, who I'm very lucky to have as an intern right now. Aaron, I want to welcome you. Thanks for joining us. So here you see, as far as loss of muscle mass, what we were talking about before. It's a gradual process, starts after the age of 30, accelerating after the age of 60. We see that muscle mass decreases by 1 to 1.4% per year in the lower limbs, which is greater than in the upper limbs. And therefore, you want to do squats and lunges. If somebody's got what's called a wear and tear syndrome, a joint issue, an arthritic, osteoarthritis of their knee or their hip, why would they want to stop training? Why would they want to diminish their activity? Why should they avoid activity? Not every hurt equals harm. Find the path of least resistance. Avoid the traffic light red pain. But you need your muscles more. Doesn't it just make sense that if your joints are becoming more arthritic or degenerative, which is like wrinkles inside your body, it's a normal aging process, the last thing you want to do is accelerate weakness of your muscles. You need your muscles even more. Sarcopenia is considered part of the causal pathway of strength loss, disability, and morbidity in older adults. You heard Ryan say that inactivity and reduced strength is correlated with cancer. You can lower your cancer risk, men and women, 20 to 40%. Something I didn't know when I was writing the first and second editions of Rehab of the Spine. So why is disability worldwide increasing? It's not just because we're living longer. This is a myth. A lot of people think that people are more disabled because we have more older people. Wrong. Not consistent with the evidence. And I don't want to give you any sensationalism here. I don't want to give you my opinion. You're all professionals. There are no junior practitioners here in this room. We have, hundreds and hundreds of you here from all over the world. You're not junior practitioners. I just want to share the facts. Because of cognitive dissonance and status quo bias, because of reimbursement issues, what we get paid to do, what people are expecting, we all kind of get into these routines, we get into these ruts, and we do things the way we learn to do them or the way that has been successful for our practice that makes people satisfied. I just want to share the facts, and I think the facts will persuade you to pivot from the Batman role to more of the Alfred role. So a fact for you, 1 in 2 adults is not getting enough physical activity. That's a fact. So this is a video from Stephen Hawking. I can't believe we're into our 3rd webinar and I haven't shared this. This usually at the FPM Lab Immersion Experiences comes out in hour number 1, maybe in the first half hour. But Stephen Hawking, before he died, from, I think it's the Oxford Library, he recorded this. It is so lucid. It is so concise. He says it all in 57 seconds. So Stephen Hawking here.
At the moment, humanity faces a major challenge, and millions of lives are in danger. As a cosmologist, I see the world as a whole, and I am here to address one of the most serious public health problems of the 21st century. Today, too many people die from complications related to overweight and obesity. We eat too much and move too little. Fortunately, the solution is simple. More physical activity and change in diet. It's not rocket science. And for what it's worth, how being sedentary has become a major health problem is beyond my understanding.
The cause of most disease is we eat too much and move too little. So there you have it. So it's not just physical activity. The lifestyle factors, the SNAPs, smoking, nutrition, alcohol, physical activity, stress, social participation, and sleep. These 7 things, one can impact their health span by up to 19 years in a positive direction. We can shrink our biological age. So I see Jackie Shu and Alex Tsang are here from Asia. I don't know what time it is over there, but welcome. Jackie has been with me many times in Shenzhen and in Guangzhou. Alex in Beijing, I believe. And as I mentioned last webinar, in Prague. Alex is in Hong Kong. Jackie is in Shenzhen. Welcome to both of you. I know it's not an ideal time, but the fact that you're here catching this live really means a lot to me. So many people are here. Beline, I know, is here from Bolivia. people from all over. So, you know, it's hard. We're connected all over the world. You get inundated with information. There's so many different schools of thought pulling you one way or the other. But is it really evidence? And I think there's a lot of urban myths. Tim Gabbett talks about this. And it's buyer beware, and it's very confusing, having all of this choice, this information overload. And that's one reason why we don't focus on methods, we focus on principles. You're going to all have so many choices, and you should go where your heart pulls you, go where your affinity lies, what your friends are doing, go hang out with your friends and take this course or that course. But I'm gonna share principles in FPM. 4 basic principles about reassurance, reactivation, resilience, and the importance of optionality, variability. And these principles will hold you in good stead like a GPS, so that you can be agile and decide when to use which methods, because all the methods have value. The marketplace has already decided that. So let's get into the why of this paradigm shift towards self-care, towards rehab. We found, and I showed this last webinar, that individuals who discussed persistent low back pain as being due to something being wrong in their body, something being out of alignment or torsioned or tight, or something being misaligned, or narrow spinal canal, spur, herniation, torn labrum, etc. They got this idea about structural pathology. They learned these beliefs 89% of the time from the so-called healthcare professional. Well, I'm saying so-called. I'm going to speak the way Professor McGill speaks. I'm going to be very, very direct, okay? Those damn bastards, okay? Let me be very, very direct. To quote Professor McGill, when somebody tells somebody they have something irreversible that can only be helped by surgery, that is the biggest nocebo of all. And those professionals, Professor McGill will say, they should be stripped of their license. So we all begin as junior practitioners. And if we science the shit out of it, like Matt Damon in The Martian, when he's stranded there and when he's marooned and he's got to figure out, okay, what do I got to do? And he makes a checklist. First thing, I gotta make my engine work, and I gotta get the radio working. But before I do that stuff, I gotta survive. I have to see if I can plant seeds. Can I nourish myself so that I have time to make these incredible achievements happen out of nowhere? What do I have? Let me see all the different resources that I have here. And so he goes, I'm going to have to science the shit out of this. Well, if you look at the facts, if you study the science, you realize that structural pathology is not a fait accompli as a decisive element in causing musculoskeletal pain and disability. That there are many factors. Musculoskeletal pain is multifactorial, so much so that usually we can't pin a specific cause of musculoskeletal pain on anything, let alone on pathoanatomy, on something on their scan. We have to evaluate the person. We have to see if they're prepared for their activities. As we've talked about, the gap between what you have and what you need. If you don't have what you need, if your current capacity is below your required capacity, well, that's a programming issue. It may not be a strength issue. It may be an issue that you're a weekend warrior. You're not training for the game. It may be you're not recovering. You're doing CrossFit, you're not recovering. It may be that you're not hitting the 30 minutes a day of moderate intensity activity. You're doing the strength training, but not the other. Or you're doing the moderate, but not the strength training. It's not the load that breaks us down. It's the load we're not prepared for. So usually there's a preparation problem. Usually there's a programming problem. It may not even be a specific weakness. It may not be an inhibited glute. It may not be a lower cross syndrome or an open scissor. You might find a lot of those things, and telling somebody they have those things can almost be just as bad as saying you have a narrow spinal canal. So we want to focus on the facts and let the science speak for itself. If you make a person feel vulnerable, and I shared this last time, then they are actually more likely to become less prepared. They are more likely to become avoidant. They are more likely to have fear avoidance behavior. If they avoid usual activities or they move too carefully, this limits their potential for recovery. So I can't tell you how many people I see who are bracing their spine and moving rigidly. We see that Karen and Peter O'Sullivan, JP Canero, Ben Smith, and this very, very insightful group from Australia, that they're helping us to understand that maybe we've been making people overprotective. Maybe some of the things we've been saying, maybe our words, they say sticks and stones may hurt, but words shouldn't, but words do. Words are nocebos. And so we want to be careful with our language. When we look at the facts, we find that lo and behold, arthritis is not a wear and tear syndrome. If arthritis was a wear and tear syndrome, there would be more arthritis in marathon runners of the same socio-demographic background as in their sedentary, inactive peers. Yet, we find the opposite. Let that sink in. There is more arthritis in sedentary people and less arthritis in highly active people. Here, as you all know, there's no junior practitioners in this room. False positive rates for every part of the body. These are wrinkles inside of the body. And when you tell somebody that you found the cause of their pain on the scan, that is a nocebo. I'm not saying it doesn't correlate, but the problem is the false positive rate is so high that if your asymptomatic peers frequently have the same thing that you have when you're in pain, then we know that you can get out of pain, that it's not a fait accompli. Yes, there may be a 50% false positive rate for pathology in asymptomatics. And if you're symptomatic, there may be a 90% correlation. But we can pivot you. It's not decisive. And what are we going to focus on? We're going to take an anti-fragile approach. We're going to focus on things with the least downside risk, like Talib talks about, in financial investments. The same thing in healthcare as in financial investments. You want what Ryan calls ROI, return on investment. You want to see where you can get the greatest return, and it's not on focusing on structural pathology. Ryan, you want to share with people how you talk about return on investment with your clients?
Yeah, I mean, take someone, I think I used the knee example last time, but let's say someone has a back or a knee issue. A lot of people, they'll say, yeah, you know, whenever I do this bending activity or staircase activity, it hurts. And then I'll have them replicate it in front of me, and they'll experience the same pain. But then talking about how we do what we do, how we convince people to buy into doing these activities and exercises we want is I'll do what we do in the movement prep. I'll onboard the sensory system. I'll make sure their glutes and abs are locked in. I'll groove their hip hinge, and then we'll retest the same movement that was painful for them in their daily life. And they also showed me it was painful to me in person. And they'll have the same movement with no pain or less pain immediately right then and there. And right then and there, I convinced them that it's useful to do these exercises I've showed them. It's useful to train these things, and then I start to dispel these structural stories because I didn't change their structure. So in that moment, when they realize that things are different, then that they can train and do something about it, they're empowered. I tell them, like, look, you have to do this, and it's as you can tell, it's very impactful for you to do it like this, and we'll upgrade these exercises over time, and then if this helps you now, we got to up the dosage later so it can help you even more later. And then people start to realize that you know, you can get so much return on each exercise if you know how to do it, and you know not that it needs to be done perfectly, but if you have a guide and you can start to take this apart a little, people they get bought in, and then they understand that each exercise is important, and that it's a path to getting back to where they want to go.
That's beautiful. So that's so powerful that we give people the positive experience with movement, so that we get them motivated about what they could do for themselves. And this gets to the heart of the matter of self-efficacy. If you give a person confidence that they can succeed in their valued life activities, that is a game changer. And that's the return on investment that we're after. We want to dispel these myths. This is the beginning point of following the science, evidence-based best practice. Look at these two scans, one with a large posterior disc herniation, effacing the spinal cord, and another very small posterior disc herniation, L5-S1. Which one needs surgery? Neither. Both patients, minor symptoms, and they're doing well with simple over-the-counter medicine and physical therapy. Treat the patient, not the MRI. Yet, if somebody has back pain and they go and see an orthopedic surgeon, the orthopedic surgeon is going to say, you got a big herniated disc, we need to take it out. This is a very powerful educational tool that reinforces for people that their back is damaged. And it scares people and it makes them fragile. And then they're afraid of activity. And so that downward spiral occurs. People become sensitized. They lower their pain threshold. Now the hurt they feel becomes the feeling they hurt. Instead of us reversing the whole thing by giving them a positive experience with movement to prove to them, not by our words, but by their own experience, that they are not fragile. When you expose somebody to a variety of activities and they feel better afterwards, they experience for themselves that the motion is the lotion. This gives us the ROI, the return on investment. And it goes to the saying from Diane Jacobs that I've mentioned before. If you want your body to feel better, feel your body move better. And we're the designer. This is dynamic systems theories. We create the environment for dynamic systems theory to challenge people at the edge of their capability. I think Ian Kaplan from Florida is in the audience, and Ian is a real wizard on this. We've got a whole team of people from Europe who are with us, from the B2R group, who are big advocates of constraints-based motor learning. And this gets to how important the social environment is, the tools that you use, the drills that you choose, creating a safe environment, like I mentioned before from Abraham Maslow, and then challenging people at the edge of their capability. When you violate somebody's expectations, when you give them that positive experience with movement, this is the biggest game changer of all. This is what we can do now through telehealth, that in the office, we're hamstrung by the patient's expectations. All of us want to satisfy people's expectations. We want to know what their expectations are. But of course, this becomes a ball and chain. So we don't want to add to that by telling people that they're unstable, that they're weak, that they should avoid bending, that they're out of alignment, that they should avoid every hurt, that all hurt equals harm, that they're degenerative. We don't want to weigh them down with that burden. Pain, after all, according to the great Lorimer Moseley, does not correlate well with the state of the tissues. It's a complex thing. People's lives are complex. Their experience of pain is multifactorial. We can't narrow it down to one specific thing. In most cases, 90% of the time, it's very, very complex. And so we need to have a simple GPS in order to be agile with this inherent complexity of the pain system, the human system, and people's lives. Look at this study reported on Twitter from Fiona Wilson. 95% of elite rugby players all have positive MRIs for abnormality. Yet the majority of these athletes do not have hip symptoms. Nearly all had an abnormal MRI. Treat the person, not the scan. Yet what happens when people see a lot of the medical doctors? The medical doctors, unfortunately, by and large, are not following the science. And that's why since the 1980s, evidence-based healthcare for musculoskeletal problems has said the first task of a person who's not a junior practitioner is to explain the false positive rate of imaging and to reassure people about the positive prognosis for their condition, and then to reactivate them. So this is called pain education. It's been around since the 1980s. It's not a 20-year-old or 15 or 10-year-old thing on Facebook about pain science, about telling people the pain's not in your tissues, it's somewhere else. You know, this is a very deleterious way of thinking. This belittles people. But progressive pain education before an activity that reassures and reactivates people, that doesn't just tell them the pain is in your head, but explains things like false positives on imaging, reduces exercise-induced pain among healthy adults. So by telling them that not every hurt equals harm, by telling them that false positives are common, you begin to reverse engineer a positive frame of reference, a positive growth mindset, so that people are more resilient. We focus on the positives, not the negatives. So what do we do? What do we do? We focus on SNAPs. We focus on smoking, nutrition, alcohol, physical activity, stress, sleep, and social participation. As the doctor on CNN from Washington, D.C. said yesterday, these lifestyle factors are crucial. Medical services are what people think determines health in, let's say, an African American who has high blood pressure or is suffering from COVID-19. But actually, most of the vulnerability in the African Americans has to do with social determinants that influence their lifestyle. Genetics is only a small part. Access to medical care is 10%, genetics is 20%, environment is 20%, and what you do is 50%, and what you do, your behaviors are nudged by the social determinants of health. So we talked about smoking and nutrition, physical activity, stress, alcohol, sleep, and social participation. Obviously, as Hawking said, it's not all about physical activity, which we talk about a disproportionate amount of the time. You know, we're all at home now. We're trapped. Where should I have Easter? The living room or the bedroom? Well, we also have to be mindful of that cupboard and all of the food that we stockpiled. It's only been 48 hours and you've eaten your entire coronavirus stockpile. And I know I've been there. I go on these trips to the grocery store and get all my health food, junk food, and I may not be rationing it well. So we talk about this issue of social determinants of health. Only around 20% of our health is determined by healthcare, as we said, with the rest of our health determined by our behaviors, our genetics, our environment, and our socioeconomic circumstances. While providing healthcare is the primary business of healthcare professionals, they do have a more holistic role to play in the lives of their patients and can support them to make healthy lifestyle choices, to help ensure that they have the care that they need and even advocate on their behalf. So this is part of the complexity. This is a recent paper published from the National Health Service in England, and it speaks to the greater role. And a lot of doctors believe, and I learned this when I was in chiropractic school, don't bother with nutrition and exercise advice, people won't comply. And a lot of you have asked me this question. How do we get people who are afraid to engage in activities that are sensitive? How do we get people to change lifestyle? How do we motivate them? How do we pivot people who are so used to us adjusting them or doing manual therapy to things they have to do for themselves? They're gonna fall off. As soon as they start doing something, they're gonna start to question whether the hurt equals harm again. These are challenges, but that doesn't change our role. And what we've learned about motivational interviewing and what we've learned about onboarding people and about how to demonstrate return on investment from a lifestyle change, as Ryan talked about, this is where we want to invest our efforts on how to get that buy-in. This is the process. This is what we're talking about in these webinars. Why bridging the gap is so important. Why the history takes me 45 minutes. why Professor McGill spends an hour on the history, to do a needs analysis, to see what people's goals are. When you know what people's goals are, then you can do an exam, not a so-called special test, but whether they have what they need. And then bridging the gap is easy, and the person will see their role. And then when you actually chip away at it and you give them a positive experience with movement, you violate all their expectations. One, that they need passive care, and two, that every hurt equals harm. It's through this process. And it's not a cookie cutter. It's not a protocol. It's not a recipe. We can't be a prisoner of protocols. The methods, as Dr. Levitt said, should serve the goals. And what goals? The patient's goals. The goals are the goals. So that's why we spend so much time in motivational interviewing on listening without interrupting, on hearing what they're saying, listening to understand. That's motivational interviewing. And after they've spoken, we say, is there anything else? Are you sure? And then we reflect so they know we're digesting. And then we repeat it back and we ask for verification whether we got it. And then again, we say, is there anything else? And then I start to assess people, and then I train them. And lo and behold, more stories unfold as we peel the onion. It's an amazing process as you dive into this and create safety in the Abraham Maslow's way through the environment you create. The stories that people tell just start to unspool. So here's our snaps. And here we see in recent cancer guidelines, of all places, all adults should avoid inactivity. Some physical activity is better than none. At least 150 minutes per week of moderate intensity activity, such as a brisk walk, or 75 minutes per week of vigorous intensity activity, such as running, plus moderate or high intensity muscle strengthening activities 2 or more times per week. So our role must change. These are the facts. This is from pregnancy guidelines. This is from cancer guidelines. This is from osteoarthritis guidelines. This is from low back guidelines. This is to enhance health span and to lower the impact of non-communicable diseases, because we are living longer. But that aside, at the age of 50, we're older, younger today than we were in the 1940s, based on X-ray comparisons, based on looking at bones of people in the industrial age, or based on looking at fossils of people from caveman days. Our bones are more degenerative today, yet we're less active. So the wear and tear story is a fragilista nocebo story that does not adhere to the facts. That's what we're talking about. We are sciencing the shit out of this. We are sticking to the facts. So here again are these 2019 Canadian guidelines for physical activity throughout pregnancy, and update, Vancouver 2019. Pregnant women should accumulate at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity physical activity each week to achieve clinically meaningful reductions in pregnancy complications. This is based on it's a strong recommendation based on moderate quality evidence. So that's what we need to do. Look at it from all these different spheres: pregnancy, arthritis, cancer. It's all lining up. How can we not do this? Why would we want to just do a fix-it approach of passive care? The question now is how. Profile your athlete. We dove into this in webinar number 2. Then build your program. The program comes after, and everybody's an athlete. Bill Bowerman, the founder of Nike, said, if you have a body, you're an athlete. A 90-year-old has to squat. We squat cradle to grave. A 7-year-old is at risk of falls going downstairs. That's a single leg bias task. You need eccentric control of your posterior chain. And yet, what do 70-year-olds say? I'm afraid if I fall, I can't get up. I was told not to do lunges. It hurts my knee. I was told not to do squats. Let me tell you, let me share with you the facts. 90-year-olds have to get up and down from a toilet seat. If they can't, they go to a nursing home. That's a squat. 75-year-olds are doing a single leg bias task, and they're at risk of falls. 400% more falls today than just 20 years ago. We need to prepare them. We need to know what their demands are, and we need to know what their capacities are. And we need to bridge the gap. And we need to explain why we're doing what we're doing in order to get them motivated so they're not as fearful. If we follow this gap approach, bridging the gap from what they have to what they need, things just sort of fall into place. Now, when it comes to the assessment of their floor, we don't use design testing with our incoming athletes, according to Chris Miller. Much of our eval comes from the induction questions, the surveillance, that's the history, that's the need analysis. And then, like Ryan said, we start to wake up their sensory system. We start to see how they hinge. We see how they move. We get their heart rate up. Much of our evaluation comes from the induction questions and then throwing them in the deep end with the first cycle and seeing how they handle what we consider to be the basic training elements, the BTEs. So Chris, he works with our Ski and Snowboard Association in Salt Lake City. He was at Altus with the sprinters and throwers, with Stuart McMillan and Dan Paff. And this applies to everybody. What are the BTEs, the basic training elements? Squat, lunge, hinge, push, pull, carry, triple flexion, triple extension, rotation. As Ryan said, we want to see what their fitness is, how quickly the heart rate gets up. Do they pass the talk test? Are they going into high threshold breathing right away with just minimal challenge of the cardiovascular system? Are the feet working? How is the mobility of the toes? Do they have sensitive feet when they're standing on a lacrosse ball? So our assessment is the immersion in the basic movement preparation, foundational stones or building blocks that one would need, the basic movement literacies. As Yonda said, time spent in assessment will save time in management. So I do 45 minutes on my history, and I do 45 minutes on my exam. And I may not do one special test. I may not do one orthopedic special test. What does Jill Cook, the great tendinopathy expert from Australia, say? We resolve symptoms, not pathology. Symptoms return. Why? If capacity is not maintained. So we got to measure capacity. We got to find the floor. Or if load exceeds capacity. So they're not trained for the game. They're not trained for the highest threshold that they may encounter of demand in their lifestyle. If all you do is run and you don't work on your single leg squat strength, if all you do is play golf and you don't work on anti-rotation tolerance, if you play tennis and you don't work on stopping and starting and changing directions, then you're not prepared. So it's not the load, it's not the activity that breaks you down, as Tim Gabbett says, it's the activity you're not prepared for. So we keep coming back to these same simple science-based messages. Educate the person, give them these messages, share with them that the motion is a lotion, not every hurt equals harm, the false positive rate for structural pathology, and that you need to be prepared. You need to train for the game. You need to train for life. If you don't have what you need, of course, you're going to continue to cycle these symptoms. And the passive care, the manual therapy, at some point isn't going to work, and you're going to be taking NSAIDs until you lower your risk of until you heighten your risk of heart disease. And when the NSAIDs don't work, you're going to be taking steroids. And then you're going to be having surgeries or doing stem cells. Educate the person on these very simple things so that they are empowered to self-manage. So number one is what Gray Cook said. We have to help people to see that the greatest ROI, the greatest return on investment, is when we focus on the low-hanging fruit. Not the twos in the FMS, but the ones. As Clint Eastwood said, a man's got to know his limitations. Here we are in Dirty Harry.
Man's got to know his limitations.
So an athlete at the highest level needs to be able to have that lateral pelvic hip stability, powerful kettlebell carry muscles, frontal plane muscles, to stabilize so they can stop on a dime. They need to have incredible visual cortex and ability for the mind and muscles to work at the speed of light. And look at the feet of these great athletes, okay? Look at Von Miller below, the great hunter, and look at this escape artist, the great one himself, Sweetness, Walter Payton, who died way too young. Look at the feet, look at the forefoot. We focus so much on the longitudinal arch where there's pronation, subtalar hyperpronation, but look at the metatarsal phalangeal joint. Look at the great toe, which is the key to the gluteal muscles. But we don't all need this. We don't need this amazing ability to square our body, to keep our pillar upright, to maintain functional control of all three planes, transverse, sagittal, and frontal. Sometimes what we need is to know, like Ryan said, how the afferent system is functioning, the sole of the foot. We need to know how the diaphragm is functioning. We use the talk test. The talk test tells us everything we need to know about your effort, your exertion, your fitness level. If you can't speak with a normal tone when you've done a beast crawl for 15 or 20 seconds, when you're in a high plank, if you're huffing and puffing right away, if you can't use your tongue and your lips properly, then you're not using your diaphragm well. If you're not using your diaphragm well, your pelvic floor is not online. If you're not using your torso muscles well, then clearly your joints are going to be in harm's way. So a lot has been learned from vocal coaching with actors, from opera training, about the tongue and lips and this whole kinetic chain. Look at the homunculus, look at the sensory motor cortex, tongue and lips, feet. These are unheralded areas for us to use environmental constraints to challenge. I start with the feet and then I go right to the talk test. That's how we onboard people. I see that some of my great friends from Switzerland are here, Tomas Regas and Julia. Thank you, Tomas. Comes every year to Arizona, to Exos for our meetings there, and joins me in Prague, and has been coming to courses for so many years, and has brought Julia with him now. So I want to thank you for coming. So many of you from France and all over the world. Our group is 100 strong, even on Easter Sunday. So we're learning the basic messages, like JFK said, a rising tide lifts all the boats. That's why we focus on the low-hanging fruit. That's why it's important that a person has to know his limitations, and we have to show them that, not on a scan, but in a way where they can make a difference. So here's John. I told you we'd get back to John and carry forward with his journey.
3 more. Back and down, forward and up. John, that looks great. Now switch legs.
Clearly, this is the hardest thing he can do well. Clearly, it's not
Just
perfect.
Live right there. So I notice you're not leaning now, which is great. Notice the difference? Pop up and forward.
John came in on this visit.
Good, and go back and down and just rest.
Came in on this visit after hurting his back going for a speed
this
walk.
This is the more challenging side, right?
Yes,
But you feel like you're managing it?
yes, managing.
Pop up and forward.
He's gassed.
I feel like this is sort of the hardest thing that you would be able to do well.
Yes.
Back and down.
In my clinic,
Last one.
he'd have wanted passive care at this point.
Incredible. Go get some water. How did that feel?
It's okay. It's better, just weak.
Yeah, better, but just weak.
So he knows he's
Doable.
weak.
Doable. I did it, yeah.
I have a feeling that exercise is the money shot, because it was doable and it was hard.
Yeah.
So I want to do the stretch again, and then I want to do one more set of that. That'll be like our finisher.
Okay.
Does that sound good?
Yeah.
All right, let's go back to sitting, and we're going to do the stretch again, and then we're going to do that lunge again. How do you feel so far today about what we're doing?
Good. Good.
Hard though, right?
Yeah.
but the heart is okay.
So John is your
Yeah.
typical patient. He's got a lot of
So we got
functional
some tape folks we're
issues.
going to share with Reload and Ryan, and we'll share with Will.
Look how tight he is.
COVID-19 lessons 101. John's left leg doesn't work as well as his right leg.
That's right. It's better to find that out before the whatever.
It's
Before
good.
the next one comes along.
It's good to know where your vulnerabilities are, so you can shore them up. So that's your floor, John. That's what's in the basement.
You know, Dirty Harry used to say, a man's got to know his limitations.
Got him.
I love that. A man's got to know his limitations. Clint Eastwood. All right, man. So start on the side that's not limited.
So we brought it all the way around, back to Dirty Harry. And here's at the end of the session.
We're going to wrap it up now. I want to hear the Clint Eastwood story from Dirty Harry. And tell me what inspired that, because that was
See, I got it from John. He made the connection.
Those limitations.
Yeah.
There's something that you said. Actually, you said, okay, so we're zeroing in on problem is the left, a certain part of the area of the left leg. And then I thought of that line because, in a way, in the movie, when you rewatch it, he's talking, it's not a complete negative at all. He's sort of saying a man's got to know his limitations. In other words, a man's got to know what he's not good at and what he is good at, And it's sort of part of the whole, you're feeling lucky kind of attitude. How many bullets did I put in? Was it 4 or was it 5? You got to ask yourself, punk, are you feeling lucky? Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Clint Eastwood, no one better. A man's got to know his limitations.
A man's got to know his limitations.
So your left leg is our goal.
That's right. That is right.
You're only as strong as that weakest link.
That's right. That's exactly it. Whoever said that couldn't have been better words than ever spoken.
Well, I've always said my favorite line is from JFK, the rising tide lifts all the boats. But now I think it's Clint Eastwood, Dirty Harry. A man's got to know his limitations.
That's right.
Once you know it, then we'll focus on it.
I mean, you could say, actually, if you want to make a plaque, a man's got to know his limitations in order to defeat them.
We're down with that. Yeah. All right. On that note, text me when you want to see me. Yeah, give me that little.
All right. So what we learn is that we have to see if people are prepared, if they have what they need. And this speaks volumes to the reality that the scan is not telling us why people have pain. The area of symptoms aren't what we need to focus on. We need to get upstream of the symptoms. We need to get to what the source is, the source of the source. The tissues are the victims, but the culprit is somewhere else. And the reality is that it's not the load that breaks you down, it's the load you're not prepared for. So how do we reverse this? We find the hardest thing that somebody does well that's linked to their capacity, deficits. So here's the image from Jill Cook, current capacity and required capacity and bridging the gap from what you have to what you need. We showed this last time. As Simone DeCarmo says, we have this triage. Analyze the demands, that's the history. Assess the capabilities to meet those demands, and then intervene to improve. This is gapping from Carmen Bott in Vancouver. This is such a simple approach. And the one other piece that we talked about last time is how much time do we have? Sometimes there's a 10K coming up. Sometimes there's somebody wants to play golf that weekend or go for a bike ride. So we need to know where they are, where they need to be, and how much time we have to get there. And then when we start to bridge the gap, we got to make it fun. We got to reassure people. We got to make it enjoyable. As Dr. Seuss said in Cat in the Hat, it's fun to have fun, but you have to know how. And so we use a lot of gamification, a lot of partner training. We do a lot of group training. Group training is a lot more fun than one-on-one. We create tension with the arm pull. This is my group in Seoul. And it's reactive, it's auto-regulating for a hip hinge. So they're naturally hip dominant here. It's not a knee dominant pattern. We also have anti-rotation here. We can also gamify in a beast position for pushing activities for the torso.
You can do it.
Pavel Satseline talks about this gamification and the difference in motor learning and motor control. He says if a person doesn't squat well, you can place them against a wall. If they don't snatch well, you can place them against a wall. They'll automatically hinge and restore the upright curve. They'll automatically, if they're throwing something, won't cast it. So if, as Viktor Frankl says in A Man's Search for Meaning, when we're no longer to change a situation, we're challenged to change ourselves. So we create the environment, we create the constraint, and then people rise to that occasion. This is constraints-based motor learning. This is dynamic systems theory. We don't just focus on the person, we focus on changing the task, changing the environment in order to bring out the best in people. The sled is one of the best things in a push pattern here for creating a beautiful plank. And we can take it into single leg bias. The pull also, it's impossible to pull the sled without a perfect plank. I can't tell you how many people I see have crappy planks and push-up positions, and then we have them pull a sled and it cleans up immediately. So as Nick Winkelman said, would you want to work for a micromanager that didn't set clear goals? Probably not. However, this is exactly how we manage our patients and athletes' motor systems. Every time we cue using overly technical internal cues that are void of a clear external goal to be achieved. So telling people what to do and where to feel it and all this can often interfere. Set up the environment and let people play, let people problem solve. It's how children learn. We don't need somebody to be interpreting everything all the time. If you're a professional, you set up the right drill. Look at this drill for an overhead athlete. Just set it up, he'll figure it out. What a coach knows and what an athlete knows about movement are not the same thing. Sounds obvious. We tend to tell our athletes more than they need to know, which pushes them into a conscious mover state. That's not a good thing. Subconscious flow is the goal, and that's what Yonda taught. He did no voluntary training of any of his patients. He taught us all the value of subcortical. Create the environment, squat and lunge on and off a rocker board. Make it fun. Gamification. In China, I've shown other examples of guiding by the side through the universal language of movement, just using the iPhone just to show the picture, no words at all. We see this poor control of the sagittal plane in a push-up. I just show the picture and they auto-correct, auto-regulation, head forward posture, scapular winging, anterior pelvic tilt, sway back, immediately pushes off from the floor. I didn't say push off from the floor. As Ryan talked last time, the key, as Coach Wooden said at UCLA, to be a real coach, to be a real professional, is to give somebody correction without causing resentment. And we do that by guiding by the side. So we want people to attribute to themselves, to increase confidence. People need to attempt something they feared and achieve it, thus violating their expectations and recognizing it as their own achievement. Independence and control are fostered by teaching people to self-reinforce and to attribute the gains to themselves. So one of the underappreciated functions of feedback and motor learning is to focus on the positives. We ignore the dysfunctional patterns, the bad trials, and we compliment and comment on the good ones. Very paradoxical. You'd think the bad ones you need to put your attention on. Actually, for skill acquisition, it just doesn't work that way. We thought it did, but the science was when we tested the hypothesis, it didn't work. We were wrong. We thought the world was flat. It turns out it wasn't flat. It was logical, it was flat, but it was wrong. It's logical, you would want to focus on what they do poorly and give them corrective exercises and give them cues, but it turns out it didn't work. It's not fun, and it makes people feel less confident. So we want to find the hardest thing that people do well. One of the tools of how we do this is what's called the RPE. And we want to find something that's at least a 6 in the RPE, perhaps something that's between a 6 and an 8. And usually the way we know it's between a 6 to 8 is if when we ask them how many more reps could you do, if they say I can only do 2 or 3 more, then we know by default it was a 6 to 8. Just subtract the number of additional reps that they could do in their own mind from 10, and you have the rating of perceived exertion. So when you know the reps in reserve, you know the rating of perceived exertion. And occasionally people will kind of kiss the edge of the envelope, lick the edge of the envelope and get to 8 or 9. But that's when they're in a high state of readiness and really feeling primed. But sustainable training should be more in a 6 to 8 range. And Ryan, do you want to talk about this and how you incorporate finding that sweet spot between not too little and not too much for people at Performance House?
Yeah, this is actually, I was just answering a question on this on the chat. So having a measurement of functional capacity is very important in terms of prescription, both for yourself and for understanding for your clients. Because if you figure out how many reps in reserve, RPE is for something, let's say like a hamstring bridge, or how many reps they can do, what their functional capacity is, you can set a goal for the person. Say in 4 weeks, I expect you, right now, this is a 4 rep max, or this is a 9 out of 10 for you to do this exercise. In 4 weeks, I expect this to be able to hit a 10 RM, or I expect you for you to do this with ease, without failing the talk test, without feeling like you're completely gassed, because I think this hamstring issue or a weakness is correlated to why you have knee pain. So your audit process will confirm that if it changes the pain, so it creates buy-in in that sense. But it also now giving them a goal puts an onus on them to be accountable for their program. I don't expect this to change unless you show me this objective change in measurement. So if you don't take an RPE, if you don't see the reps in reserve for a specific exercise, you can't tell if, 1, your prescription is improving the quality that you want, but 2, it doesn't give direction to the program or to the person. So having RPE and RIR, especially with readiness, that's your back door, is very helpful to guide the program. The way readiness plays a role is that if people don't perform as well, if their readiness is lower, that's an explanation to sometimes the progress isn't linear. So this is a way you can cover yourself, something that I've learned over time. But having this functional capacity goals, RPE and RIR, with your exercises helps you also get away from the clinical audit process, because then it's not just about auditing pain, but it's about function. That chart we showed last week about improving function over time eventually removes pain, instead of making it remove pain all the time. This way you don't fall into the trap of always doing these magic tricks, which is another form of a fix-it. It creates another fix-it or corrective exercise expectation. It sends the wrong message. It doesn't make it about the process of training and changing lifestyle. So I like functional capacity goals, and I love, at the end of every single session, I always ask RPE, and I always reiterate that we're aiming for that, 6, 7, or 8, and that we're going to keep making changes every time we hit that. It gets them in the mindset of nailing the sweet spot and understanding what we're trying to teach them.
Wow, I notice Alex is here. Do you have any questions for us? Let me unmute you, Alex. Alex is here from Hong Kong, also Jackie from Shenzhen. Do either one of you have any questions? Aaron, or did you have a question from
So I
Alex?
think in the chat,
Alex, I've unmuted you. I see Donald Berry is here. Welcome, Donald. I'm going to unmute you, Donald.
Alex doesn't have a mic.
He doesn't have a mic. Okay. And Beline is here. Beline, did you have a question for us or a comment? From Bolivia. Can we hear you? No? Okay. So, Aaron, can you share with us one of the questions from Hong Kong?
Yes, sir. Well, Alex was talking on the chat with Ryan a little bit about the clinical audit process. I think that would be a good starting point for Ryan to riff on that out loud a little bit if you want to go that route, Ryan.
So, Aaron, can you please give me the question?
Yeah. So Alex was talking about, doesn't the CAP also help us to determine if we are selecting the correct exercise for the individual? If we don't use it as frequently, how do we determine that we are on the right path or making a difference?
All right. So, first of all, before Ryan tackles that, a lot of you don't know what the CAP is. So, Ryan, would you define what CAP means and why we program for the long game, not the short game?
Yeah, so the clinical audit process is just a process of assessing a movement or an activity and then applying an intervention and then reassessing to see if there's a change. So a lot of times what we do is we'll put someone in a shin box, kind of like what you saw in the case before. We'll see someone has limited hip internal rotation mobility. We'll apply an intervention like the single leg RDL with the cable pull. Which will target, like Dr. Liebenson mentioned, the glute med and single leg control and posterior chain and all these things. And if that changes the hip internal rotation in that moment, it empowers the client to see that they can do these exercises and they don't need surgeries and shots or whatever other interventions. But additionally, what it tells the clinician or the coach is that training those specific areas or those specific patterns is the direction. It has return on that investment. It confirms our suspicions that we got from our history. If someone tells us a bunch of hints that they don't have a lot of single leg control or glute med, and then we see in the single leg balance test that they don't have great frontal plane control, then we start constructing our exercise program to start to address those. And then the CAP helps us to see if that actually makes a difference. What I said before in the chat was that the clinical audit process is great to manage buy-in. For me, that's the number one tool, because what it does is it empowers people and it re-educates and it gives people the epiphany that they have control over this. However, the clinical audit process for us, after we read more studies about training through pain and things, that it's actually safe to train through pain, that it became a trap. It made us try to meet people's expectations, to give them an exercise and show a change every time. But if we truly understand the physiology of change, it takes a long time. And if we truly understand changing people's behavior and buy-in, and not just reinforcing this fix-it mentality in the form of active exercise as opposed to passive modalities, it's the same thing. If we fall into that trap, then we're doing the same exact thing. That's also the fault, kind of a short-sighted thing to do. So I think that's why I was talking about the functional capacities, is you want to see that in your program, you're getting stronger or more able in certain things that also would suggest that we're getting stronger in the posterior chain or in the glute med. If we're doing a higher level lunge that we were previously was a 1 where we kept losing balance, like you guys saw John Jacobs, if we do a bunch of hamstring work and glute work and quad work, and then all of a sudden his back lunge ceiling goes up, and I've seen this happen, then we know we're on the right path. But if we just keep training that lunge pattern over and over, and then he's able to increase his RM, then we know that's, and then also at the same time, his activity intolerance, his disabilities start to lessen and his pain start to lessen. That's how we know we're on the right path. Craig, you're muted.
That's beautiful. Hello.
Craig.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Is Pertu able to talk? I'm going to unmute you, one of our B2R people from Europe. And that should be good. Pertu, do you have any thoughts for us on this subject?
Sorry, I have to, can you hear me?
Yeah, perfectly. Tell everybody where you're from, Pertu, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on the importance of activity and that not every hurt equals harm, so that we can reassure people.
Yeah, that's a great question, and obviously probably where the majority of this webinar has been on. And truly, I think that's the unfortunate mindset that people with pain often are coming to see us as healthcare professionals, because their understanding of that pain is indeed related to the structural problem. But that's really also what's my personal interest is been interviewing. That's why I did a small study on my old university, at the University of South Wales, at the Welsh Institute of Chiropractic, by interviewing individuals who are chiropractic patients at their understanding of their back pain and where they believe it is originating from. Similarly, what you were showing Jenny Setchel's research study there. So whether we're going to find similarities, that these beliefs are primarily coming from healthcare professionals. And then also I want to do kind of investigate how they shape the patient's perception regarding exercise and physical activity for low back pain. So interestingly, the same sort of thing keep on coming back and back, that despite people being, understanding the importance of exercise and activity, but the belief is still very much grounded within that biomechanical framework, that it is, a weak core, or it's weak glutes, it's loose this or tight that, and these are the things that need to be corrected with the exercises, and this often shapes the understanding that that's what we need to do. And I think that although that is great that we're getting people moving and exercising more, there's the potential harmful effect that people will then perceive that, okay, this is what I need to do to stay and remain pain-free. But if I don't carry on with these exercises, then what's the prognosis? What's going to happen to us? And it is seen that these exercises are, protecting from the pain itself. And although, like I said, that's great, but how is that going to impact on activities of daily living if the individual forgets to tense their core, if they forget to, keep a neutral spine and they bend forward? What's going to happen then? Because these, like bending the spine, is a neutral human motion. It's something that we need in our daily living. But if we restrict that to a one way of doing it, that you need to keep on, tensing up the core and keep it strong in that sense, as what Peter O'Sullivan often telling us, that individuals with back pain, they have more trunk muscle activity in order to protect it. So that being said, when we reframe exercise to individuals with who are suffering from MSK conditions like back pain, I think it's important to prescribe, as well as we know that they're meeting these physical activity guideline recommendations, but that it's not in a sense that we're not giving the message of the vulnerability of the spine and the back, because I don't think we inherently mean to do it, but it's often the message that unfortunately often comes out when we are giving this, prescribing exercise for individuals with back pain.
So I love that, Pertu. This is a very This is a very important point, that when people are told that they have a tight psoas or that they need to brace their spine or need to be neutral, these can be nocebos.
Yeah.
There may be a place for addressing those things, but it can really bite us in the butt later on. In contrast, the more generic physical activity guidelines actually help people feel less fragile. We just want people to stay in the game. We want people to meet the guidelines, which are basically 30 minutes a day of activity. It's about activity more than exercise. The exercise would be twice a week to offset sarcopenia. And as long as they aren't afraid of injuring themselves, the resistance training will be the biggest game changer of all. And when they are afraid of injuring themselves, the success that they have when they violate that fear avoidance belief via actually doing robust training, let's say twice a week or 3 times a week, that will have the most profound effect of all. And we're very agnostic. It doesn't have to be a specific form of exercise. And we definitely don't want them to be thinking all the time about neutral spine. We want them to train for the game. And then you don't think. A golfer trains, and then the fewer thoughts they have in their head, the more successful they are in competition. So you train for the game, and then you free your mind. You're not a conscious mover at that point. You're a subconscious mover, which is what Yonda taught. So as Quinn Henoch says here, the key to rehab and training is finding the hardest thing you do well that's linked to your goal. What do you prioritize? This is the $1 million question. You pick the next most difficult variation that's closest to what you can't do or closest to the goal. And then you manipulate the constraints until you figure out how you can load to an intensity that will have some transference and give a training effect. So at the end of the day, it's all about cortical plasticity. The muscles that fire together, they wire together. So the golfer should do a lot of rotation, anti-rotation, a lot of hip hinge. The runner who gets tendinopathy in their knee and then stops running and rests and goes back, and the pain returns and gets frustrated, and then gets orthotics and stretches and new shoes, and then they go back and the symptoms return and gets depressed. They've never done the most important thing, which is train for the hardest part of running, which is landing. When you land, there's 5 to 8 times body weight with every landing. So do you have springs? Do you have shocks? And can you squat on one leg? Can you go hip dominant on one leg? Can you do single leg bias? We want to train for the game. We want it to be what we call relatable, so that we can explain why we're doing what we're doing. And that's what Quinn is talking here about prioritization. We want to not only find the hardest thing you do well, but we want to make sure that it's closest to the goal activity. That's called relatedness. This builds trust. This gets the buy-in so people can see that there's likely to be, in Ryan's language, a return on their training investment. So what is rehab? Rehab is training in the presence of injury. It's not micromanaging with corrective exercises. Pavel Tsatsouline said, leave your corrective exercises outside of my gym. But we want people to do 30 minutes a day and a couple days a week. I'll add that 3 sets of 10 rep max can be very effective, but 3 sets of 10 when the patient could easily do 20, not so much. I find it helps to advise people to keep it tough at 10. So they are at least close to the 10 rep max, which can be effective physiologically. And we've known this for 70 years. This is exercise science 101. This will be effective for actually causing adaptation. This is all about adaptation of the mind and the body. We know in order to cause adaptation that you need to have a strength challenge that's near your limit. When the threshold is near your limit and you come up close to it with technical proficiency, such as you can pass the talk test, you're still able to speak in a normal cadence voice, you're not holding your breath and barely talking, then we know that everything is online and all the content is streaming, like the straight chiropractors say, above, down, inside out. This is the vis mediatrix naturale. Now we're onboarding all of the sensory motor cortical plasticity, and you're more likely to get positive adaptations or transference. So the goal is always the goal. So when we're looking at executing, as Pertu was saying, these physical activity guidelines, we don't want to manage people away from load. We don't want to overcorrect. We don't want to get them thinking about normal things such as bending and becoming fearful of normal things. But we want them to build the resilience. We want them to be reassured, reactivated, and become more robust. So one of the simplest things to tell people, to keep it simple, so we're not micromanaging every motor control fault, is, are you huffing and puffing regularly? Huff and puff often. So that's where you get to that 4 to 7 intensity on the RP. The RP comes from Sweden, from the work of Borg, who passed away recently, for cardiovascular training. And we want to be up towards those moderate intensity levels in order to change not just the cardiovascular system, but to erase sarcopenia. So I gave a talk recently for some students, and they said there's so much more we can do for patients. I've never thought about it this way. People are thinking of corrective exercises and manual therapy and a fix-it Batman approach instead of teaching people about self-efficacy. And a lot of this was born from Robin McKenzie in the 1960s, an accidental discovery. So if you want to know the history, he had a receptionist who brought an acute hot low back pain patient back to a room. The room had a table that was hinged. The person was told to wait there for Mr. McKenzie, and the person assumed they were supposed to lie prone. McKenzie walks in the room. The person gets up off the plinth, stands up, shakes his hands, and goes, "My God, you cured me. You're a genius." And Robin, with aplomb, just sort of rolled with it, and then realized that we had it wrong. We didn't need to open up the spinal canal and stretch out the posterior erector spinae muscles to take pressure off of somebody's low back pain. But we needed to help them restore the normal lordosis. And actually, we need to do some things that were paradoxical that some people were afraid of. We needed to get them into extension and say, maybe not every hurt equals harm, as long as we're centralizing peripheral symptoms, even if it's stiff and uncomfortable and painful. This is not a hurt that equals harm, again, to Pertu's point. So this helps us hinge from the Batman role to the Alfred role. And that, I think, is what Ryan and Pertu, Donald Barry and Alex and Jackie and all of us have come to understand. And this is the basics teachings of Dr. Carol Levitt from again, the early days of Rehab, when he and Yonda were really the pioneers. Rehab is to show people what they can do for themselves. And it's a very Hippocratic way of thinking. Hippocrates said the first treatment, of course, is to do no harm. And Dr. Levitt did a riff on that. He said the first treatment is to show the person to avoid what harms them. And Pertu said it perfectly. These ideas about excessive bracing or avoidance of forward bending, they may be what harms them. And you saw last webinar, my patient who came up on his own with flexion-based windmills for his flexion intolerant low back pain. So here's a complex question that came in from Alex Pucciarelli from Australia. Tom Myers, anatomy trained, refers to two types of famous characteristics: locked long or eccentrically loaded, and locked short or concentrically loaded. I feel this is similar to Yonda's approach of upper and lower crossed. Would the rehab hierarchy and biopsychosocial model prioritize motor learning principles to counteract these habits of guarding and protection? Or would you be better suited to addressing the muscle from an overall structural strength standpoint, such as pulling, pushing, planking? I love this question because I think it's a very, very typical question. There's a lot of systems out there. I know Tom very well. Fascial lines and chains, slings, if you will, are well known and a commonly accepted thing by people in manual therapy. But I think that your point about looking at it biopsychosocially and focusing on motor learning to counteract habits of guarding is crucial. If somebody is prone to tightness, and Pertu talked about this, we want to give them confidence. We don't want to give them a nocebo that they constantly need to stretch. So John, who's always saying, "Can you rub my QL?" He's better off in telehealth because now he has to work through it. He's actually okay. I need to help him see that he's okay. And in person, he expects the fix it. So I think the reassurance never quite comes to the foreground when we're face to face, because he drags us back into Batman role. And as far as strength, this is to Ryan's point about some things take time. Sometimes the audit doesn't really work in the short term. Simple cases, the audit is great. For buy-in, the audit is great. I always want to do an audit, but sometimes like in a tendinopathy, this is a process. Tendinopathies may not improve for 4, 5, 6 months. Do you want to be auditing that every session? We want to focus on the baseline dysfunctions, such as they're not able to do a single leg squat, a chair squat, body weight. Can you squat up and down 20 times? That's the ACL return to sport criteria after ACL reconstruction. I use it as prehab. I use it as baseline testing of, do you have what you need? If you're a runner spiking knee pain, how many single leg box squats or chair squats can you do? And we find that we can get buy-in for, okay, you can only do 3 on the left. That's the symptomatic side. You can do 8 on the right. Let's see if in 6 weeks you can do 8 on the left. Let's see if in 3 months you can do 20. By the time you can do 20, you can go back to running safely. So I love that question. And we know arthritis is not a thing. It's not an entity. We want to view it more as a process. It has inflammation. It's related to diet. It's related to cortisol and stress. Here's a question from Kylene Human. It's been a dream of mine for years to be able to attend one of your courses, but it's never been possible. So COVID-19 has made this possible and brought unexpected positive consequences for me personally. So thank you so much for these webinars. And it's not just for people in the audience to come, but it's for me to be able to chat with Pertu. As a chiropractor in South Africa, I've gone through so many evolutions, I've gone through many evolutions as people in the group have. I guess being drawn in by passive care techniques in the early part of my career, but struggling to have lasting effects with these methods. They're short term, and creating a cycle of just repeating the process over and over. Over the years, I've introduced rehab principles, but maintaining motivation and compliance and rehab and the rehab purgatory of overcorrecting people and managing them away from the load that you speak of is real, and it gets in the way of the progress that we want. I've had success, but I feel that my experience and assessment and ability to find the floor is somewhat limited. It's easy to fall back into the patient's expectations of just getting their back cracked or the adjustment or whatever just to make them feel better. I find that frustrating, as I don't feel as though I'm doing my best to address their actual needs and goals. So my question is to the group, do you have advice for practitioners who are transitioning from a passive to an active patient-centered approach and in upskilling them so they can confidently progress their patient? So I'm going to pause it there and throw it to Ryan. I think this is the burning question that keeps coming up. Aaron, would you agree that this is a recurring question?
I think we've seen something along these lines just about every week so far.
And Pertu, are you still with us?
Yep, still here.
Would you say this is kind of the heart and soul of it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a question that I hear very, very often, like you as well, probably. I can imagine.
So I think even though it's a long question, and we've still got about 10 minutes to go here. So Ryan, you want to kind of give your thoughts again? We've been talking about it. Let's talk about it again, and then Pertu, I'd like you to chime in as well.
Absolutely.
I think it starts with identifying, like we talked about before, building rapport and understanding who you have in front of you. I think that helps you hone in on how to be pretty direct with your message. It's identifying things education-wise, nocebo-wise, that are blocking them from accepting the paradigm shift you're trying to show them. So you have to de-educate before you re-educate. I think that's one of the most important things. That in the past I used to just say, here, just do this, it makes you feel better, and then just listen to me, this will work over time. But it's hard to do that when they also get 10 conflicting messages from other doctors or previous paradigms. So I think one of the most important steps after getting to know the person, and part of getting to know the person, is understand what their current beliefs are, and then arm yourself as a practitioner to have all the studies on hand. Look at lasportsandspine.com, look at the list of resources on the shoulder, the back, the knee, all the false positives, all the research. Training with pain, with tendinopathies, with knee pain, understanding all that research will, one, give you confidence in what you're doing, but two, allow you to speak to a person in a way where they believe you. And then from there it goes, it's about, like I've said in the past, giving them a physical examination and a experience that backs up the education you just gave them. So giving them a education and an experience that confirms what you're educating them on is I think the key to going from passive to active. And then I think the next question that goes along with this that people always talk about is, how do you get them to go from active to long-term buy-in into the training process? And I think the key in that is empowerment and a positive experience with movement, because when people feel more able than they've ever felt before, or they feel very safe with you, and they feel like they can tackle things that they couldn't before, I think that's the key to getting them to consistently have self-efficacy, which is shown to be a bigger prognostic indicator than the structural pathology itself. So to understand that how to give people confidence through just violating, beliefs about fearful things that they have, and just making them feel strong and able, and that's the key. And then you can slowly teach. Now that we're doing more telehealth, I focus all my telehealth sessions that are one-on-one into teaching them movements, teaching them skills, so that they can train themselves instead of rely on me to be their coach. So I think those are some places I would start.
That's beautiful. Pertu, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, no, that was brilliant, Ryan. I really agree with what you said there. I think it starts really from the initial visit with the client or the patient, and I like what you said there. You kind of addressing their beliefs about what's going on, why do they believe they are experiencing pain, how do they think it's best to be managed, and you kind of understand and see where they are at that point. But perhaps you can frame it also into their history of like how many treatments they've received. Say if they've they've been regularly treated with manual therapy, and they seem to believe that that's a very important intervention in regarding their pain management. But perhaps you could then frame the question, well, if you have to keep coming back regularly, treatment after treatment, is it that effective in the long run? Like perhaps get them realize it. And I like what you said there. In fact, you do a thorough physical examination, and this is what we learned from papers like, for example, from Liu et al. In this year, February. It was titled "The Evaluation is Treatment for Back Pain," and in that paper, they concluded that just the history taken, the case history, and the physical examination alone, you can get a small but significant effect in pain reduction, also improving things like the psychosocial factor in reducing catastrophizing, fear of movement, and increasing self-efficacy. So that is a really, really valuable tool. And if you can perform the thorough examination and explaining what you do, and again, not in a sense that you're trying to find the quote unquote peripheral pain generator, but you're explaining that, look, all these structures and these tissues are sound. If we had say a positive test, you're probably experiencing symptoms like this, but now because you're not experiencing, there's no pain, there's not neurological compromise, nothing like this. This to me seems that you are strong. You are, you know, the tissues are sound, they're robust. You have everything that you can to manage yourself. And once, I think, again, going a little bit out of tangent here, but the need to get a structural based diagnosis, this was what Ben Darlow taught us, is that the patients think that it will change their plan of management. Like, if I find what's wrong with me, now I can get the correct manipulation. Now I can get the, you know, the stretch that I need, or the dry needling. But if you can, you know, rule out their concerns with the physical examination, then they're more confident, and that will be reassuring to them that there's nothing structurally that we would need to fix. Okay. And then I don't like to frame the discussion towards pain too much, but if you get their attention by saying, like, look, we have plenty of evidence to suggest that active care and exercise is in fact great towards pain management, that will probably get their attention. But we have to frame it in a way, this is what I commented in your post, Greg, about the, you know, comparing to things like diagnosis of osteoarthritis on patients with knee pain. If we're just telling them that, you know, their view of the pain is that it's wear and tear, but we're telling them that, look, you just need to squat and load the knee, that creates a dissonance in them. They don't understand really why they need to do it. Like, my knee is hurting because of wear and tear. Why do I need to load it more with the squats? So again, getting the explanation and understanding, if they understand and make sense of their pain better, that's what Peter O'Sullivan has taught us, to help them make sense of their pain. Therefore, they probably understand more why active care would also help them. And now we're positively reinforcing that idea that they're not broken or vulnerable with things like the constraint-led approach, or something like a clinical play that we use with back to roots often, is to get, you know, have certain constraints that you're still putting the individuals through movements such as spinal flexion and bending, but you're making it in a fun and playful way. And they realize that, actually, wait, I didn't feel symptoms, or my symptoms didn't increase even though I was doing the exercise or the activity that I was fearful of. Now we can enter the discussion of, wait, pain doesn't equal tissue damage or harm. You are safe, but you know, you're sore but safe. You know, we can do this, and you are strong and robust, and we can start the path towards active care, because then they understand that they can move, and that is not harmful to them. And once we get the buy-in through the action, that's a lot easier to, you know, create the behavioral change than just saying, like, sit down and let me, quote unquote, pain educate you. So if we combine the history taking with the thorough physical examination in a way that we can reassure them that nothing is structurally wrong, then we can reactive way to what you guys are saying. I love the creating positive experience with movement. That's when we can tune those things in. And long run, you've probably seen this with as well, Greg. I love your videos with clients working, doing just, you know, killing it in the gym, doing exercises. They understand that, wow, this feels so great. You mean I feel strong. And we know that exercise is probably also one of our greatest psychosocial and psychological intervention. We're not so clear on the evidence that, you know, increasing strength or, you know, range of motion or you know, endurance, that those are so correlated well with pain reduction, but more so the confidence and the self-efficacy, getting someone to lift things off the ground with deadlifting when they've had problems playing with their kids. Now, I think that's a big win in there. So yeah, that's my take on it. I know it was a long answer, but
no, it's a brilliant take.
Putting all them together, that's a win.
One of the things that you say that I just want to applaud for, I mean, that was amazing, is this idea that just the process of assessing has a therapeutic effect.
100%.
Pasteur said there's a lot you can learn by observation. And Galileo said that you can learn something even from the most ignorant person. And when we are listening and assessing, we're demonstrating empathy. And that builds that bond, that bridges the gap from human to human. What we want to do is we want people to know that we care. And then we can compassionately guide them. Then they're less likely to be fearful. They'll feel safer when we say, okay, you know, the scan isn't the whole story, and they're not believing us. They're thinking that the scan was the whole story, that it did tell them what was wrong. But now we're going to find something that's stiff or weak, and now we're going to use motion as the lotion and give them a positive experience with movement, which will dispel the belief that things are a fait accompli. So now we start to give them self-confidence. and self-efficacy. So it is this process of not dismissing anything, to your point, and finding something where we can get return on investment from activity, not micromanaging dysfunction, but seeing that agnostically activity is generally good, that we're actually not as fragile as we were told. We were told we had wear and tear and we should avoid activity. So the way that you frame this, that there's a study on dismissiveness of doctors who, when they don't find structural pathology, they tell them nothing is wrong. Well, that's like a hopeless exercise. So you have at the one end somebody over exaggerating that they found the cause and disabling the person with these nocebos, and at the other end dismissing them and telling them we didn't find anything at all, so there's no cause, it's in your head. Well, it's horrible. They're both horrible. And then you get in our world where we're micromanaging normal human behavior, saying stiffness and tightness is something that needs to be corrected all the time, when in reality, what we want to do is make people more resilient. So
yeah, absolutely.
I think this is a very, very fascinating biopsychosocial thing. And to the question, it is something that needs to be upskilled, and it's going to take practice. One of the things that's game changing as we come down to the final minutes here is stop focusing on the negatives, the pathology, the torsion pelvis, the lower cross syndrome. Focus on the positive. Focus on wellness, not illness. Focus on what people can do. Focus on their mindset. And this is the difference between a sustainable model and a recovery-based model. In a recovery-based model, you're always reacting to the avoidance and the disability and the fear. But in a sustainable model, we're providing social support, and we're more of an acceptance-based, optimism, positive, value-based, activity-based approach, where we're trying to re-engage and reintegrate. And this is in modern psychology, a big pivot from focusing on correcting the negative to focusing on supporting the positive. A big part of Rehab of the Spine, 3rd edition, addresses this. And Tim DeFrancesco, a friend of mine who was the Lakers strength and conditioning coach, summarized it quite well. He said, I'm amazed at how many doctors and PTs, and chiropractors certainly too, are telling people who need gradual strength training to stretch, rest, ice, take a pill, and immobilize instead. Please stop. This promotes fragility. So in summary, we know that science is about testing our hypotheses, breaking the cognitive dissonance that we have, learning to think openly and learn from our mistakes. Chris Littlewood, a great shoulder scientist, says, as I strive to learn more, I realize I know less than I thought I did. Challenging and liberating at the same time. And I am increasingly turned off by people who speak with certainty about musculoskeletal and orthopedic pain presentations. I love Chris's work. So we want to reject the cookie cutter plans, the one size fits all plug and play protocols that fail to address the nuances that Ryan and Pertu are talking about each patient. And yes, there are nuances. To upskill this is a process. To elevate ourselves, this is a process. It's a new game now. We're in a new world. And we try to teach these principles of reassurance and reactivation that Pertu talked about, that has been in the evidence since the 80s. The dissemination of these guidelines has been all over the world, but the implementation has been poor for all the reasons that we're discussing. And telehealth is opening a new vista, a new potential for us now that we're not constrained from doing self-care. We're constrained from being the Batman. We're constrained now from thinking that you should avoid all activities that hurt. Hurt doesn't always equal harm. We talked about this last time. So obviously, as Ryan said, with the limitations of the clinical audit process, both the benefit and the limitation of the CAP, that we can't always change things overnight. Just because the window is open, there's no guarantee the breeze will blow in. However, if the window remains shut, there's no possibility the breeze will blow in. Activity opens the window. So we want people to participate. A person who executes over 80% of their training sessions, whether it's the 30 minutes a day of moderate activity or the twice a week of strength training, are 7 times more likely to achieve their goals. To me, the sign of a great routine is one which places demands on the person yet produces progressive long-term improvement without soreness, injury, or the person ever feeling depleted. What did Pavel Satsaline say? He said, a good workout should leave you with more than it takes away. So we want to trust the process. It's not about the quick fix. That's what we're moving away from. And at the end of the day, as Dr. Levitt taught, and as Laird Hamilton said, that which enhances performance prevents injury. This is the sustainability model. So I want to leave you again today with contact 5 people who are most socially distanced right now: the elderly, the health compromised, those with multi-morbidities. Reach out. You can touch people without your hands. We can touch people in the musculoskeletal space without our hands. We are now at the 2-hour mark. We'll see you next week. We'll take questions on Facebook. I want to thank Purdue, all of you from all over the world. I want to thank Ryan. I want to thank Aaron and Geronimo. We'll see you on the Facebook page. Email me questions. And with that, we're all in this together. It's in our hands to create a better world for all who live in it. Thank you guys very, very much. Happy Easter. Happy Passover.
All right.
Thank you guys.
Have a great day.
Thank you very much, Craig. Thanks for letting me talk and having me in. This has been great. Really like what you guys do, and I think the key message that comes from here is that it all boils down to also the one very important skill that I think that makes us, healthcare professionals, is communication. How can we communicate these things better? Because I think that's where it all starts. And you've mentioned there that we need to be not giving pessimistic, negative message, but optimistic, give people hope. And I think often people with persistent and chronic pain, they're lacking hope, because if they view their spine or any part of the body as degenerated or worn out, then how do they see themselves in the future? That's a very negative image. So if we can help people make sense of their pain, reactivate, as you've been speaking in here, which I love, and giving reactivating them and inspiring them to move and take most of their daily living, I think that's when we can really create hope. So the communication and language that we use can either harm, but let's not let it harm. Let's actually let it heal and improve the language that we use in clinical practice. So that's brilliant.
I love it. And that's my mission: tangible hope and an achievable plan. And we really like giving a positive experience with movement. And it's via communication. Communication, to your point, is our most powerful technique. That is our most powerful technique of all. Ryan, you want to take us out?
Oh man, no, that was incredible, Bertu. I think it helps me to hear from someone else from somewhere else in the world explaining the same things and arriving at the similar conclusions. So I want to thank you for sharing that, and I'm glad this has been helpful for you and everybody else. So I hope to see you guys all next Sunday, same time, same place. Thanks, everybody.
We're all in this together, stronger together. That's it.
Yes, bye, everybody. Thanks for staying with us.
Awesome. Thanks.
Bye.
Take care. Stay safe.